coming along the top path here. Thank goodness. We've got some sunshine today. It's been so grey. And here's that lovely Nepalese Mahonia in flower. So we'll go down and have a look a bit more closely at it. Regrettably, it really grows enormously big. And as a result, I've had to chop away at it in order to get it past it along the path. So the flowers are mainly at the top. We better get up there and have a look. Well, I've just got on a ladder, actually. The better to see the flowers close up. Very red buds opening up to a sort of a stripe, and then the fully open flower, which is a yellow. So the whole effect is rather orange. Now here we're approaching a reddish flowered witch hazel. And the important thing with these is to plant them where the sun shines on them. Otherwise they can get completely lost. A slight error on my part was to plant it against the background of Cornus midwinter fire, which you can see at the back there, whose tips of the branches have a very similar coloration. Still, I think with the sun on it you can see it, and it's also got bigger over the years obviously, and therefore has made more of an impact. This is Hemamelis Jelena. She was Jelena de Belder's, had a wonderful arboretum created in Galanthus and in Belgium, and has an enormous collection of witch hazels. Now I don't know if you remember, but I showed you that the oak had squashed this evergreen tree, Filaria latifolia, a relative of the olive, and it was full of flower under all the squashed oak branches, so it's had to be chopped up. But I see here that about 2/3 of it is still underground, and I have high hopes that it will actually sprout again. It'll be fun to see, because it's a nice evergreen tree, and now it has light instead of being under the oak. A happy sight. Snowdrops. The archetypal winter flower. Well, this snowdrop, I believe, is quite a common one. Tall, robust, and it's called Galanthus elwesii. Lovely to see, especially if they're spreading about. And there are one or two very early crocuses just about to start. But if we go along here, we see something that looks just like a snowdrop, but on closer inspection, it's not. These are snowflakes, leucojum. They have rather pointy ends to the petals, which in this case have a little yellow marking. And I said it before, I think these look rather like Tiffany lampshades. The spring snowflake. Still on the subject of snowdrops, here's a lovely little group. Some from bulbs that a friend of mine gave me a year or two back, and they seem very happy here. It's got great big fleshy petals. And it's called Benton Magnet. Magnet is quite a famous snowdrop, quite tall growing, but Benton Magnet is a much smaller, dwarfer affair. And it's lovely fluttering about in the breeze. Another bunch of snowdrops. This one's got very wide leaves with a stripe, quite fleshy, large flowers, and it flowers a bit later than the others. This is Galanthus woronowii, I think that's how you pronounce it. Now here's a dog waiting for action. Aren't you, Bert? Waiting for action of some sort. Come on then. Always a lovely sight. A pool of blue. Crocuses. These early crocuses. They go on flowering for quite a long time. And very welcome they are too. They've mixed up with one or two others. There's a nice bit of colour in this corner here with the Correa. This one is either peachy cream or Marion's marvel. Difficult to tell the two. And then behind it is the Californian shrub Garrya elliptica with its dangling catkins. The male form has got longer catkins than the female, and this is supposed to be a male form, but I don't know, some of the catkins aren't as long as they might be. I want to take you down here a minute. Have a look at this rather sprawling shrub with its little flowers, which you may recognize as a Correa. But in contrast to the Correa peachy cream, which we've seen, these are rather small flowers, although the foliage is very attractive with its rusty underneath. I brought you here because this one's called Correa Purinda Mary. And I've been intrigued to know what Purinda was about, because quite a lot of Australian hybrids have got Purinda in their name. I grow Grevillea Purinda constans, for example, and then there's a famous mint bush called Prostanthera Purinda ballerina. So I made some investigations and found that this refers to a farm in East Gippsland in Victoria, in the Snowy River Valley in Australia, owned by one Leo Min or Leo Hodge. Now, Leo was one of 14 children, bought a farm, called it Purinda after the Aboriginal name for light. And here's a rather grainy picture of him. Anyway, he in the 1950s and 60s decided, having explored the valley around the Snowy River thoroughly, he would make some hybrids of Australian native shrubs, which he proceeded to do, not a trained horticulturalist, and produced about 50 hybrids, some of which have stood the test of time. He was quite a character, I think. He lived into his 80s. He was a violinist, a painter, an official dingo trapper, a sheep shearer, and had a dairy and beef herd. An all-rounder. So that's the origin of the name Purinda. Walking through the round temple, I suddenly spotted this flowering shrub. It's a Daphne, and I put it here because of the scent. This is Daphne White Queen. Not a very big bush after a few years, but still. The only thing is that the flowering is just on the end of every branch, and not much of it. Good scent, but still. It's always interesting to me how scented winter flowering plants are. Here's a 40-year-old witch hazel called Pallida, one of the first of the yellow witch hazels, and I think it's a great one. Even now, after all these years, it never fails to impress and flower. It's a splendid one. I saw this first at my father-in-law's garden, and I was very taken with it then. It must be at least 40 years old. Still on the subject of witch hazels, here's one which is actually 4 years old, very slow growing. But the thing about this is the amazing perfume, really sweet. In fact, it's called Gimborne's perfume, and a very apt name it is too. Rather congested flowers here, but it really is a wonderful scent. And now we've got the start of the what might be termed the normal spring flowering camellias, but here is a very early version and a most amazing red colour. It's a distinctive camellia. Some of them are very much alike, but this one is definitely something you can spy from a distance. It may be a combination of the colour and the shape of the flower, but this is called Camellia Freedom Bell. Starts quite early on in the season. It's been going for a couple of weeks now, and will carry on for another four weeks or so. If you're enjoying these videos of my garden, why don't you subscribe to my channel, and then you get notified of all the new videos as they come out. Keep in touch.